fucking remakes! So in the last video, I said I couldn't really think of a good trend, but hey, surprise surprise, I don't think remakes are all that bad in principle. Remakes are levels that take the ideas and gameplay from an older level and try to create it into something new. And we've been seeing them more and more over the last couple of years. It's interesting to explore new possibilities with the levels we've come to know, and it allows us to gauge how far we've come as a community. So to me there are two different types of remakes. The first is the true remake that completely stays true to the original by retaining the same general style and layout, and there's the remakes that completely reimagine the level with a different style altogether, which you could also call a remaster. I don't think one is inherently better than the other, but I do think a remaster is potentially more interesting. Not all levels will fall exactly into one of these categories, it's probably more accurate to place them on a spectrum, but for the sake of simplicity I'll use these two categories for this video. First, true remakes. Let's start off with something that I would consider a good remake. Ultra Sans. In the current shitstorm of 1.9 themed levels that are designed to capitalize on nostalgia, Pleb Kingdom managed to create a 1.9 level that isn't absolutely terrible. Ultra Sans takes Ultrasonic, which is already a good level in its own right, and expands on it. The designs in this level clearly take inspiration from the original, but are generally a lot more intricate. Not only that, but they also extended the level while maintaining the general atmosphere. I like how one of the parts takes inspiration from Subsonic, yet it fits the level perfectly. Sadly, the original had this terrible ball maze, so this one does too, of course. However, in Ultra Sans, I find that the colors kinda clash and don't look very good. I think they tried to go for a complementary color scheme, but it didn't really work out too well in my opinion. Anyway, I'm aware that this is not that serious of a level, but they didn't sacrifice the quality of their level for the sake of a dumb joke, which takes some dedication and is something to be respected. So Selenium Grouse got raided recently, which got a lot of people hyped. It's a level that takes inspiration from the infamous Silent Club Step. Truly a terrifying creation. So yeah, I guess I'll talk about that level. I'm guessing the reason people were excited for it wasn't necessarily the quality of the level though. More so the difficulty, but whatever. That's not what we're here for, so let's go through it. The level immediately hits you with the best part right off the bat. It has a nice desaturated color palette. The designs are a bit basic, but functional I guess. The only gripe I really have with this part is the big black spaces that have these lines in them. The color on these lines is a bit off, I think, but that's not really the main problem. I think there's a lot of lost potential in these empty areas for different designs. Maybe some areas in these spots could have had a different texture with some additional decoration or something. Either way, like I said, this is still the best part. It all goes downhill from here, so strap in. The second part is a bit more true to the original, I guess, but the decoration is even more basic and uninspired than the first. I mean, I guess it kinda works, but it's also really boring. Speaking of boring, let's continue with the next part, which is just mostly blackness. Yeah, not much to say here, honestly. Actually, let's just stop it right there. The rest of the level is just more of the same kind of stuff, and it's really not that interesting to hear me repeat myself over and over. One thing I quickly want to mention though. Stormfly is often credited for this level, but clearly he did not take part in the creation process at all according to the ending credits in the level itself. I don't know if the creators agreed Stormfly should be credited or what, but I really think it should be the host who should be credited and not the verifier. Of course, verifying a hard level is also important, but that's the reason we credit them separately. Of course, I didn't forget about all the Sonic Wave remakes. I mean, how could I? You constantly get beaten over the head with the never-ending hype train that surround these levels, and I just don't get it. I don't think they're very good at all. Sonic Wave Rebirth was cool for its time, I guess, but the effects in it are really outdated and don't hold up at all anymore. Sonic Wave Infinity is unfinished, so I don't want to give my full judgment on it yet, but so far the impression I get is, what if Sonic Wave was a core level? I've expressed my opinions on core multiple times already, but short version is that it's gross, basically. I will say that the level does have some potential though. Some of the parts don't look too bad, but... Whoa! Looks like the Sonic Wave alarm is going off again. It seems yet another Sonic Wave remake has been completed just this second. Let's have a look. Check it out everybody, it's Auditory Breaker by Mannix and Laser Blitz. Well, I have to hand it to them that so far this is the best one, but there's still some major issues with it. For one, some of the earlier parts are extremely outdated. Other parts have really intrusive effects that just blind you. The highlights of this level are pretty good though. So it's got that going for it. At least it's much better than Soundwave Destroyer, which is just a bootleg version of this. Speaking of which, why are there so many Sonic Wave remakes and why do they all suck? Come on guys. One of the earliest remakes I can remember is Rearmed, which was pretty cool since it was such a massive improvement over the original. But honestly, that's kind of like saying getting shot in the head once is a massive improvement over getting shot in the head 5 times. It didn't age very well at all, so looking back on it reveals a lot of its flaws. Though I have to admit that I still like the effects for the drop. I think it would be interesting if Carmel revisited this level one more time since it's been so long. Also, one thing I noticed is that in both of these levels he very nearly dies right at the end of the level. So yeah, I don't know what the point of that was. So now let's talk about some remasters. I honestly feel this category is a bit underrepresented, especially considering the endless possibilities with it. Of course you have levels like Super Sonic, but well, we don't talk about that. So the obvious level to talk about here is Bath, which is fairly recent. Bath is actually an okay level. I think it's a bit rough around the edges in some parts, but I think this level shows that you can pull off a modernistic style without making it incredibly boring and empty. Optical. Now, they didn't change the gameplay for this level, at least not in a major way that's obvious at first glance, but they did change a lot of the structures, which gives the level a completely different feel, on top of the different style obviously. I think it would have been better if they had changed the gameplay somewhat while still taking inspiration from the original, so it could completely stand on its own. Another level which is kinda similar to Bath is Yajagarasu, and I think you can see what the pattern is here. Yeah, most of these remasters are actually just joke levels intended to take the piss out of the original. That's honestly fine, and if well done can be pretty funny, but it does take away from the overall experience a bit, I think. I mean, if every single level was a joke level, then there would be little point to it. Anyway, I think Jajagarasu is better executed as a joke level, but when it comes to actual decoration, I think it has some very weak parts. There's a couple parts in this level that are pretty good, and some others that are decent. The quality in this level isn't nearly as consistent as in Ultra Sands, which is probably because everyone built it in their own style instead of gaining inspiration from a single level. And I can't really think of any more levels that would be worth talking about, so I guess that's the end of that. So yeah, remakes can be really interesting if done correctly, but I think the problem with them is that people often try to ride the coattails of the original and don't put in their best effort as a result. That's a huge shame because it kind of taints the legacy of that level in my eyes. A remake should be handled with care, because not only do you have to live up to the current creating standards, you also have to do the original level justice.